Okay, you've definitely seen this pop up on your social media feed, the rice purity test. It starts off looking all innocent, making you think, this'll be a piece of cake. But as anyone who's actually clicked through it knows, it takes a very, very sharp turn.
So you start scrolling, right? Question 1, held hands? Check. Easy. Question 6, kissed on the lips? Check. Okay, simple enough. You're sitting there all confident thinking, I'm definitely going to finish with like a solid 90. It just seems like a pretty basic look at your social life.
And then you stop. You have to lean closer to your phone because there's no way you just read that right. Used methamphetamine, crack cocaine, PCP, horse tranquilizers, or heroin? And all of a sudden, you're not wondering about your score. You're wondering, wait, is this a purity test or am I filling out a background check for the FBI? Okay, let's just dive right into that because that feeling of whiplash is exactly what makes this test such an internet legend. We're going to look at some of the questions that make you wonder if you should be calling a lawyer instead of sharing your score with your friends.
This is the one. This is the question that stops everyone dead in their tracks. We have officially left the land of holding hands and have arrived in a place that feels more like an episode of a crime drama. I mean, the sheer specificity of it all is what's so jarring and, let's be honest, kind of hilarious. And it just keeps escalating, which is what's so wild. We've gone from substance use to being firmly in the category of, actively breaking the law. It's a huge, huge leap from asking if you've ever just been on a date.
And here it is. This is basically the final boss of the "is this a real question" section. If you started this whole thing thinking about your first kiss, you're probably now just staring blankly at your phone, deciding, yeah, maybe I'll just keep my score to myself. So what is actually going on here?
So let's peel back all these layers of pure absurdity and get to what this test actually is and, more importantly, where in the world it came from. Because believe it or not, it didn't start out as a meme designed to scare teenagers.
At its core, it's pretty simple. It's a self-graded survey with 100 questions. The score you get is just a measure of how many of these life experiences you've actually had. A perfect 100 means you're a total blank slate, while a 0 means, well, let's just say you've lived a very, very full life. And this thing has been around for a long time. It was created way back in 1924 at Rice University in Texas. And get this, it wasn't about moral judgment at all. It was just a fun icebreaker for freshmen. From there, it spread to other colleges in the 80s, and then, of course, the internet got a hold of it, and boom, it exploded into the global trend we all know today.
Okay, so how does ticking a box next to horse tranquilizers actually translate into that final number you get? Well, the mechanics are incredibly simple. Let's break down how it's scored. It's really just a 3-step process. You read the 100 questions, you try to be honest and check off the things you've actually done, and your score pops up instantly. No waiting around, no email sign up, just immediate results.
And the math behind it could not be simpler. You start with a score of 100, and for every single box you check, you lose 1 point. So if you've done 30 of the things on the list, your score is 70. It's that straightforward. Now, those 100 questions aren't just thrown together randomly. They're actually neatly divided into 5 different categories, with exactly 20 questions each: romance, intimacy, substances, rules and authority, and social and adventure. This balanced structure is exactly why the test can swing so wildly from innocent to, well, felonious. All right, let's get to the part everyone really cares about. You've taken the test, you've survived the shock of some of those questions, and you have your number. So what does it actually mean? First things first, and this is super important, the test itself isn't judging you. Seriously, there's no such thing as a good or bad score. A high score isn't some kind of trophy, and a low score is definitely not a mark of shame. It's just a snapshot of your unique story. But generally speaking, a high score, let's say between 76 and 100, just means you've had fewer of the listed experiences. That's pretty typical for teens and high schoolers. On the flip side, a low score, maybe below 50, suggests you've been a bit more adventurous and worldly, which is pretty common for adults over 25. Neither one is better. They just reflect different stages of life. And this chart is actually super helpful because it puts it all into perspective with real data. You can see how an 18-year-old scoring a 70 is totally normal for their age group, but that same score would be pretty uncommon for someone over 26. It just shows how your score naturally goes down as you get older and, live more life. So here's the big question. Why are we still so obsessed with a survey that's almost 100 years old? It's about more than just shock value. There are some real psychological and social things going on that explain why it's so popular.
It really boils down to three key things. First, it's an amazing tool for social bonding. I mean, sharing scores can lead to some surprisingly deep and honest chats with friends. Second, it gives you a quick moment of self reflection to see how you've grown. And of course, it's fast, it's free, and it's anonymous, which is basically the perfect recipe for a viral internet trend.
At the end of the day, the rice purity test has stuck around for a century because it taps into this really fundamental human curiosity we have about ourselves and about each other. It's kind of like a mirror, a very, very strange and distorted mirror, which leaves us with one final thought. In an age of constant data and metrics, what does our obsession with putting a number on our life experiences really say about us?